great saints to the church, and we'll even in our next time period have a great pope who will be brought to the church during a crucial moment in time theologically and also politically. This is Pope St. Leo the Great. We'll learn about him and his important work in the history of the church when we meet next for the second session of Conversion and Councils.
I don't have the commentary that Patrick would give you, but what we're going to do is break up into small groups to discuss the questions, and each of us in those small groups will provide that commentary that Patrick would normally give us. So let me count. 6. We'll put 2 to 3 people on each group and spend just about 5 minutes, so we respect everybody's time, looking at the questions and in our own discussions trying to formulate answers. And the cheat sheet is on page 125 for session 4. So if you get stumped, go to the answers in the back. Any questions? Let's see, why don't you two do question number 1, number 2, question number 3. Once you do question number 4, question number 5, question number 6, question number 7. Does that work?
Oh, no, I sit in the same spot. Well, without knowing more than what, definitely very organized and decisive, and not afraid to set down what is believed and what everyone's going to do. And if you don't like it, I will put you out.
And because the favorite is to come in, they could go ahead and talk about it, so it spreads throughout the world. The persecuted.
Helping Christians, dictating what they really believe, and yet actually
Well, really,
it's like it's just weird. If I were the bishops, I'd be like, you're not even one of us, and yet you're going to tell us what we're going to have to do, and you're going to call council and like, just join or get out of our way. I want to be able to fit everything. So much that we. Yeah, that's why I was reading. And like I already do.
Yeah, I didn't watch it.
But obviously constantly call the council to prove that bishops can consider the question.
And like they were saying, in our CIA,
He did talk a little bit about
You mean that you were?
No. That title, but it probably is close.
That helps. Which I guess is better than sitting on a pillar. More interesting, but it still is weird.
To honor our time to get you at about 6:30, let's go ahead and do the outbriefs. Keep them short and sweet, and we'll go question by question, a minute or so, really. So we'll start with question 1. The question is, one historian has remarked that Constantine gave the world a vision of what a Christian emperor could be. What is your assessment of Constantine and his relationship with the church? So this is, take the floor.
Our assessment was basically that he was very organized, and very kind of controlling, but he also did a lot to help the church, which was even more remarkable since he wasn't actually a part of it. In a way, it can be kind of like, why are you instructing us on what to do when you're not even one of us? But he did a lot of good. He also set the precedent for secular rulers kind of putting their foot in and trying to shape what the church believes, and calling councils and punishing people with the exiling who don't agree with the church. So you see that a lot throughout all the rulers. Some of the church leaders use that as justification during the Reformation too, like, well, we didn't burn those people, we handed them over to the secular government and they did. So that kind of gets dangerous later on, but yeah, that's basically it.
Oh, thank you.
Good answer.
Okay, let's go to question number 2. The Edict of Milan is one of the most significant events in church history. When was it issued? What did it accomplish? And why do you think it was important?
When was it issued? 313. What did it accomplish? It legalized the faith, legalized Christianity. Why do you think it was important? I think that was a trick question. I mean, duh. Without it, the church, maybe the church still would have progressed, but probably much slower than it did. As a legalized faith, the faith took off.
Okay, moving to question number 3. The question is, Arianism plagued the church for over 300 years. What were the basic tenets of this heresy? Does it still exist today?
Well, thank you for giving us the The basic tenet is that Arians denied the divinity of Christ. They thought it was a very good figure, a God figure or not, but basically denied that divinity. And does it exist today? Well, it's vague that there are people who deny it, and there's some quasi scholars who still believe that, and a good example of that was what this gentleman talked about, the Da Vinci Code. Never read it, so I got a confession for all other things, but not for that.
I read it, but I was raised Protestant, so I think that there's so much we get wrong. I'll be forgiven for that.
Absolutely.
I forget.
Is there anything else you want to share on 3?
No.
Okay. Number 4, popular books and movies often claim that Constantine completely transformed the church. In particular, it is said that Constantine imposed the idea that Jesus Christ was God and established the hierarchical order of the church. Can you refute this error based on what you've learned about church history?
Well, first, Constantine did interfere greatly in the church, and in some respects that was helpful. In other respects, it probably retarded the church. But he did call the council, Nicaea, but that council was approved by the Pope. The bishops attended in large numbers, particularly from the eastern rite, or the eastern half of the empire. And in an overwhelming vote, they concluded that in fact, Jesus was consubstantial with the Father. He was not a creature of the Father, he was one in being with the Father. And that goes back to large, in earlier sessions, we were talking about, letters being written, by the martyrs referring to Jesus our God. So, the earliest time of the church, the Christians believed he in fact was God. The Gospels say that. The people from the apostolic tradition continue to believe that, and the heretics deny it even today.
Nice way to wrap that all together.
Well said.
Just a personal note, I'm always amazed to hear that our creed that we say every week goes back to that time period.
The 325.
So not only are we one church in today's time, but we're one church across time. Question number 5. As emperor, Constantine was very involved in church affairs. How do you think that precedent influenced church history? How do political leaders approach the church in our modern times? What is the proper role of the church in politics?
Well, you mentioned earlier with that vote in the Nicene Council that Constantine had exiled 2 bishops. So that was an interference right there. And then probably we could come up to more modern times, not modern, but Henry VIII and his attempt to dominate the church and the split that took place there. And Thomas More standing up against him. In more modern times, political leaders, heads of states have customarily gone to the Vatican, to the Pope, trying to maintain good relations, or at least to try to carry the influence of the Pope. And then the role of the church today, it's not political, shouldn't be political, but it is proper for it to speak with regard to moral questions, where the politics is dealing with something that is moral. The church has the obligation to speak out.
Yes, it does. We should be voting based on the Christian values that we believe in.
Yes.
Absolutely. All right, we're moving on to question, thank you. We're moving on to question 6. The Council of Nicaea was the first ecumenical council of the church. What was the major discussion at the council? The council produced a negative and positive teaching. What were they?
Some of this is kind of repetitive from the other questions. The major discussion, of course, was the Arian heresy. Arius was a priest in North Africa who denied that Christ was divine, and so this council was brought about by the Pope Sylvester I in 325, and he was, and the discussion was about this heresy, and the positive thing that came about was the Nicene Creed that brought a unity with the fact that we do believe Christ is divine. The negative was then condemning Arius and his errors.
Good summation, thank you. Moving to question number 7. A new form of living the Christian faith emerged during this time period, monasticism. Where did it originate and why there? With whom? How was it lived?
It emerged in Egypt, and due to the fact that there was so much persecution going on in Egypt under Diocletian, the people, Christians were willing to give their lives for God. And when that persecution and martyrdom was removed, then they started choosing a white martyrdom, which was dedicating their lives to God rather than dying, but they lived their lives for God. And the first people. The first person was St. Anthony, the abbot, and he was more of a hermit figure, I think, isn't that right? And then Pachomius also, and that's how it all originated, started with them. It was lived out early as a hermit, and then later on with St. Basil the Great, then it became more of living in community.
Very good, thank you. I appreciate everyone doing the discussions tonight. Thank you very much. For all were very good summations and wrap-ups. Let's go ahead and end tonight with a glory be. In the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, amen. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end, amen. In the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, amen.
And thank you for leading us tonight.
You're welcome.
You did a great job.
Well, thank you. Have a great evening and a safe trip home. I think there might be a little rain out there. You're welcome.
I thought that.
On the RCA says, and I actually was a history major at MSU, and when you're talking about, they say that in the 1325 council was when it was voted on, and before that I didn't read it. Did you bring your taught me that in my college class as well. So, like, I mean, I always thought, you know, I mean, to me, I was taught that in college. I mean, why would they? They're professors, they know what this is their field, you know, but, Oh, no, I went to MSU.
Blue chairs, let's stack the blue chairs, because I don't have a place to put the white chairs, and I lean them up against the cabinets.